morning, friends. Today's topic is e-invoicing under the GST, and it will be presented by my son, CA Bharat Garg. Friends, as you are aware that e-invoicing would be implemented from 1st October 2020, and the government has thought it to bring it in phased manner. Initially, it will be applicable to those taxpayers whose turnover is 500 crore plus. The purpose of the E-invoicing is basically twofold. First one, to curb the evasion and to simplifying the system of invoicing and link to the e-way bill. It will certainly help the taxpayers that everything will be automized. So presently, as I said, that it would be applicable to those taxpayers whose turnover, rather aggregate turnover, is more than 500 crores. Friends, when we talk about the aggregate turnover, we should be very, very clear what does it include. We are aware that aggregate turnover includes the taxable as well as exempted supplies. But it also includes the inter-branch supply of goods and even the cross charges. So sometimes it might happen in the case of big companies who are having the multi-locational or multi-state operation. Supposing the goods are transferred from the factory to the warehouse and where from warehouse it is sold, then in that case the turnover will be multiplied. For example, if my balance sheet turnover is say 300 crore and I am located in say 10 states and my factory used to transfer all the material from the factory to the various states for the further sale, then certainly my turnover would be more than and my aggregate turnover, if all the branch transfers are to be included, it would be more than 500 crores. Similarly, whatever the invoices I have raised for the cross charge, that would also be included in the aggregate turnover. So friends, be careful. Please take care about this. And one more thing I like to highlight before I hand over to Bharat is that it is generally applicable to B2B transactions. It is not applicable to B2C transactions. In the B2C transaction, they have stated that my system or whatever server or whatever app I am using, that would generate the dynamic QR code itself. Friends, it is not clear whether all B2B invoices will have the invoice-wise QR code. For example, if you take the case of, say, Big Bazaar, it might be raising thousands of the B2C bills across number of counters, even in a single outlet. So whether all these invoices, B2C invoices, will have the dynamic QR and that too invoice-wise, and if that is so, it will be certainly a big challenge to the companies. So, friends, as the time proceed, things would be simplified. Whatever issues are there, then certainly that would be sorted out. And I like to hand over to Bharat for the further proceedings. Thank you.
Hi friends, good afternoon. This side CA Bharat. This is my first video on GST. Today I will be deliberating upon e-invoicing. I will touch some key features of e-invoicing, try to answer few queries which I have seen on various platforms in respect to RCM, TCS and the income tax, B2C suppliers. Further, I will highlight linkages of e-invoicing with e-way bill and GST returns. So as we all are aware that the government has introduced e-invoicing with effect from 1st October 2020. So I would like to start with a basic question. What is e-invoicing? Basically, there are some notified registered persons who are required to upload specified particulars of the invoice on IRP to generate IRN and QR code. This means that the government will not generate invoice. It is the taxpayers who will generate on their ERPs. Then they need to transfer such details on IRP for generation of IRN and QR code. Second important question is who is required to generate e-invoice? So as per notification number 13/2020 read with 61/2020, registered persons whose aggregate turnover exceeds 500 crores in a financial year shall issue e-invoice. Here there are two important things to note. First, aggregate turnover should be calculated on pan-India basis. Further, aggregate turnover should be as per the section 26 of CGST Act, which includes stock transfer. Second important in this is a phrase in a financial year. Here, notification, as I've mentioned before, does not talk about which financial year. However, as per the release note and FAQ released by the government, it states that any financial year in a GST regime. However, in my view, notification does not say so and it should be of current financial year. Therefore, clarity is awaited in this aspect. Further, taxpayers may see on the portal whether e-invoicing is enabled or not. This would help the buyers to know whether suppliers are eligible for e-invoicing or not. There are some exceptions to e-invoicing, such as SEZ, insurer, banking company, financial institution, including NBFC, GTA, passenger transportation services, admission to exhibition of cinematographic films, etc. Thirdly, which supplies are covered under e-invoicing? All B2B, including business to government, credit notes, debit notes, exports are included. B2C supplies, delivery challan, and exempt supplies are not included for the purpose of e-invoicing. Further, to note that e-invoices can be cancelled within 24 hours of generation. Post that, credit or debit note should be raised. Lastly, the main question, how to generate e-invoice. Taxpayer would create utility to report e-invoice details in JSON format to IRP, and then they will receive a signed e-invoice in JSON format from the portal. There can be multiple modes available with the taxpayers to generate e-invoice, which can be like API based, mobile app based, offline tool based, or GST based. Here, I would like to highlight few important things that iron is not mandatory to be printed on the invoice. However, QR code is mandatory. QR code can be placed anywhere on the e-invoice by the taxpayers. Further, taxpayers are not required to sign the e-invoice. IRP portal would validate it through digital signature. So, I would like to answer a few questions which taxpayers have in mind and I've seen in various portals. Like, firstly, the applicability of e-invoice on B2C supplies. Like I've mentioned before, e-invoice is not applicable for B2C invoices. However, taxpayers are required to generate dynamic QR code on their own as per notification 14/2020. Government will not provide this facility. Particulars of QR code are not specified by the government. uh, Basically, it can include basic details of invoices and payment UPI gateway. Second question which arises is applicability of e-invoicing for RCM supplies. In this case, service provider is required to raise e-invoice and not the service recipient. In other words, e-invoice is not applicable on self-invoice. Thirdly, what would be the treatment of TCS under income tax in e-invoicing? Basically, in one of the sessions undertaken by the government, they have mentioned that they will revise the schema in due course of time. Currently, TCS can also be mentioned under other charges column, the schema on invoice level basis. This has been clarified in one of the seminars taken by the government. Next question which arises, how buyers will know the e-invoice is applicable on the supplier. Like mentioned before, supplier buyers can check the status of e-invoice on the portal through GSTN number. Buyers must ensure that they receive e-invoice since it may have ITC implications otherwise. Lastly, I like to highlight few linkages of e-invoicing with e-way bill and GST returns. It is important to note that e-invoice would continue to be mandatory. E-way bill would continue to be mandatory. Now, both Part A and Part B of e-way bill are provided in the e-invoice schema. The details will be used to generate e-way bill by e-way bill system. In case Part B details are not provided as part of e-invoice, the same will have to be provided by the user on e-way bill portal for generation of e-way bill. Login credentials of both e-way bill and e-invoice would be same. Once e-way bill is created, e-invoice cannot be cancelled unless e-way bill is cancelled. For linkages of GST returns, it is expected that the details which has been uploaded for e-invoice would be auto-populated in GSTR1. So that's it for today. Thank you, friends. See you later. Bye.